The excavator's steel teeth bit into concrete as Sarah watched from her kitchen window, her neighbor Karen screaming into her phone, "I'm calling 911. This is destruction of property." But what Karen didn't know was that Sarah had been recording everything for months, every trespass, every threat, every illegal use of a pool. And when that lawsuit papers arrived 3 days later, Sarah smiled. Because sometimes, the best revenge is simply giving someone exactly what they asked for. The sound of children's laughter drifting over the fence at 6 in the morning was the final straw. Sarah Martinez pressed her face against the cool kitchen window, watching in disbelief as her neighbor's twin boys cannonballed into her swimming pool for what had to be the 20th time this month. "That's it," she whispered, her coffee mug trembling in her grip. "That's absolutely it." For 3 years, Sarah had endured Karen Peterson's entitled behavior. It started small, Karen's kids retrieving balls from Sarah's backyard, then lingering by the pool's edge. Then came the casual comments about how wasteful it was for a single woman to have such a large pool just sitting there unused. The hints evolved into outright suggestions that the neighborhood children should have access to it during the hot Phoenix summers. But this morning, watching 8-year-old twins Marco and Diego Peterson splash around in her pool while their mother Karen lounged on Sarah's deck furniture, sipping what appeared to be a mimosa, pushed Sarah past every reasonable boundary. Sarah marched outside, her bare feet slapping against the heated concrete. "Karen, what the hell do you think you're doing?" Karen Peterson looked up from her phone with the practiced innocence of someone who'd perfected the art of playing victim. She was 42, blonde, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no in any meaningful way. "Oh, Sarah. Good morning, honey. The boys were just cooling off. This heat is just brutal, isn't it? In my pool. On my property. Without my permission." Sarah's voice rose with each word. "Again. Now, don't be dramatic." Karen waved a dismissive hand, her acrylic nails catching the morning sunlight. "It's not like you ever use it. And it's dangerous to let a pool sit stagnant like that. I'm practically doing you a favor by keeping the water circulated." Sarah felt heat rush to her face that had nothing to do with the desert sun. "Get out. All of you. Now." "Boys, 5 more minutes," Karen called to her sons, then turned back to Sarah with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You know, Sarah, I've been meaning to talk to you about getting a proper gate installed between our properties. For the children's safety, of course. They could accidentally wander over here and they're not accidentally doing anything." Sarah's voice cracked. "You're deliberately bringing them here. You moved that loose fence board yourself." Karen's smile faltered for just a moment. "I have no idea what you're talking about. That fence has been broken for months. If anything, you're being negligent by not fixing it. What if one of the neighborhood children got hurt because of your negligence?" The threat was barely veiled, and they both knew it. Sarah had heard variations of this conversation from Karen before, always ending with subtle implications about liability, lawsuits, and Sarah's responsibility to the community. "Get your children out of my pool, Karen. I'm not asking again." "Or what?" Karen stood up, her posture shifting from casual to confrontational. At 5'8", she had 3 inches on Sarah, and she used every bit of it. "You'll call the police? About children swimming? Do you know how that would look? A bitter, lonely woman calling the cops on innocent kids just trying to cool off in this heat wave." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. 3 years of this. 3 years of coming home from her job at the architectural firm to find Karen's family, treating her backyard like their personal resort. 3 years of polite requests, firm boundaries, and increasingly desperate attempts to reclaim her own space. "I installed security cameras last month," Sarah said quietly. Karen's perfectly contoured face went pale beneath her spray tan. "What?" "Every angle of my backyard. Motion activated, cloud storage, timestamps. I have video of you teaching your boys how to move that fence board. I have audio of you telling them it's okay to use Aunt Sarah's pool whenever they want because I'm too selfish to share. I have footage of you bringing your book club over here last Tuesday for what you called a pool party." The color drained completely from Karen's face. "You've been spying on us." "I've been protecting my property." Sarah pulled out her phone. "I also have recordings of our conversations. including the one 2 weeks ago where you said you'd make my life hell if I put up a higher fence. Boys. Karen's voice came out sharp and panicked. Out of the pool. Now. Marco and Diego Peterson groaned in protest but obediently climbed. Out, dripping pool water across Sarah's expensive travertine deck. This isn't over, Karen hissed as she gathered her things. Sarah's deck cushions, Sarah's pool towels, Sarah's outdoor umbrella that she'd apparently been using as shade. You think you're so smart with your little cameras and your recording devices. But I know people in this city, Sarah. I know lawyers, I know judges, I know people on the HOA board. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Karen's voice dropped to a whisper as her boys ran ahead toward the loose fence board. You have no idea what you've just started. Sarah watched them disappear through the gap in the fence, then pulled up the security app on her phone. Every word, every threat, every trespass, all captured in crystal clear digital quality. She called her lawyer that afternoon. The evidence is overwhelming, Patricia Rowan had said during their consultation. Trespassing, theft of services, intimidation, threats. You have grounds for restraining orders, civil suits, even criminal charges if you want to pursue them. I don't want money, Sarah had replied. I just want my peace back. Well, you could install a fence. A proper one. Maybe an in-ground pool cover system to make access impossible. Sarah had considered it. Spent weeks researching contractors, getting quotes, imagining a tall privacy fence and an automated pool cover that would end this nightmare once and for all. But then she'd watched Karen host another unauthorized pool party that weekend, this time charging neighborhood kids $5 each for pool access and pocketing the money herself. That's when Sarah had her revelation. Why build walls around a problem when you could simply eliminate the problem entirely? She'd called Desert Excavation Services on Monday morning. You want to remove the whole pool. Jake Morrison, the company owner, had sounded confused. That's a beautiful in-ground pool. Probably adds $30,000 to your property. Value. Maybe more in this market. I want it gone. Completely. Filled in, landscaped over. Like it never existed. Well, if you're sure. It's your property. When did you want to start? Tomorrow. And now, as Sarah watched the excavator's massive steel arms swing through the morning air, she felt something she hadn't experienced in 3 years. Absolute control over her own space. The machine's hydraulic whine mixed with the sound of concrete. Cracking. Chunks of pool decking tumbled into the excavated hole as Jake Morrison worked with practiced efficiency, methodically destroying what had taken months to build. Sarah's doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she could see Karen Peterson's face, red with fury and streaked with mascara. Behind her stood 2 police officers. Sarah opened the door with a smile. Officers, thank you for responding so quickly. Karen said breathlessly, this woman is destroying property that affects the entire neighborhood. That pool is part of our community. Our children depend on it. She's being vindictive and destructive and, Officer Rodriguez interrupted. Gently. Whose property is the pool on? Well, it's hers, technically, but then she can do whatever she wants with it. Officer Martinez looked apologetically at Sarah. I'm sorry for the disruption. We got a call about property destruction, but if this is your pool on your property. It is, Sarah confirmed. I have all the permits. The excavation company is licensed and bonded. Everything's completely legal. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. But she's only doing this to hurt the children. She's being spiteful and, I'm going to need you to step back onto your own property, Officer Rodriguez said firmly. And, he addressed Sarah, you might want to check with your HOA about any community guidelines regarding major landscaping changes. Sarah's smile widened. I'm actually the HOA president. I approved my own permit application yesterday. The look on Karen's face was worth every penny of the excavation costs. As the police officers escorted Karen back to her property, Sarah heard her neighbor screaming threats across the fence. You'll pay for this. I'm calling my lawyer. This is harassment. This is destruction of community property. I'll sue you for everything you have. Sarah waved cheerfully and went inside to make popcorn. The excavation would take all day, and she wanted to enjoy every minute of it. Her phone buzzed with a text from her lawyer. Got your message about the pool removal. Brilliant move. Document everything. Something tells me you're going to need evidence of your property rights very soon. Sarah looked out her window at the growing pile of concrete and steel that had once been her beautiful swimming pool, then at Karen Peterson's. The law offices of Brennan, Walsh & Associates occupied the entire 15th floor of a glass tower in downtown Phoenix, and Karen Peterson felt invincible as she strode through the marble lobby in her designer heels. She'd chosen Thomas Brennan, specifically because of his reputation for aggressive litigation and his particular talent for making life miserable for defendants who dared to fight back. This is going to be beautiful, she told her sister Monica over the phone as she waited in the reception area. Sarah thinks she's so clever with her little cameras and her pool destruction. She has no idea what real legal warfare looks like. Thomas Brennan was exactly what Karen had expected. Mid-50s, silver-haired, with a kind of predatory smile that suggested he'd enjoy crushing Sarah Martinez under his Italian leather loafers. His office was a monument to successful intimidation. Awards, newspaper clippings, and photographs of him shaking hands with judges and politicians. Mrs. Peterson, I've reviewed your initial complaint, Brennan said, settling behind his massive mahogany desk. This is certainly an interesting case. Tell me, in your own words, what exactly happened? Karen launched into her carefully rehearsed narrative. Sarah Martinez was a vindictive neighbor who had destroyed community property out of spite. The pool had been an informal community resource that local children had safely enjoyed for years under parental supervision. Sarah's sudden decision to remove it was clearly motivated by malice and had caused significant emotional distress to the neighborhood families. She recorded us without permission, Karen added, her voice rising with practiced indignation. She violated our privacy, made threats, and then destroyed property that our children had come to depend on. My boys are traumatized. They keep asking why the mean lady took away their swimming pool. Brennan nodded thoughtfully, making notes on a yellow legal pad. And you mentioned implied easement rights. Absolutely. We've been using that pool for 3 years with her knowledge and consent. That establishes a pattern of permissive use that creates legal rights. She can't just arbitrarily revoke access without proper notice. Interesting theory. Brennan's smile sharpened. And you're seeking damages for the destruction of community resources, compensation for emotional distress, legal fees, and an injunction requiring her to restore the pool or provide equivalent recreational access. Brennan leaned back in his leather chair. This could be quite lucrative. Property law, emotional distress, potential civil rights violations regarding children's welfare. I think we can make a very compelling case that your neighbor's actions constitute a form of community harassment. Karen felt a rush of vindictive satisfaction. So you'll take the case? I'll take it. My retainer is $50,000, plus costs. Given the complexity and the potential media attention, I'd estimate total fees in the range of $200,000 to $300,000. Karen's excitement faltered slightly. $200,000? For a neighbor dispute. Mrs. Peterson, you're not just fighting for a swimming pool. You're fighting for the principle that property owners can't arbitrarily destroy community resources out of spite. This could set important legal precedents. That kind of groundbreaking litigation doesn't come cheap. The number made Karen's stomach clench, but she thought about Sarah's smug face during the pool destruction. Fine. Do whatever it takes. Meanwhile, 3 miles away in a much smaller office, Sarah Martinez sat across from Patricia Rowan, trying not to laugh as her lawyer read through Karen's lawsuit. Conspiracy to deprive minors of recreational access, Patricia read aloud, shaking her head. I've been practicing law for 23 years, and I've never seen anything quite this delusional. Can she actually win any of this? Sarah asked. Win? Sarah, she's going to get destroyed. But that doesn't mean this won't be expensive and time-consuming. Thomas Brennan is a bulldog. He'll drag this out as long as possible, file motion after motion, demand depositions from every neighbor on your block. He's going to try to make fighting this lawsuit more expensive than settling. Sarah's jaw tightened. I'm not settling. Not 1 penny. Good. Because I think we can do better than just winning. Patricia's smile had a predatory edge that reminded Sarah why she'd chosen her as an attorney. Your neighbor has made some very interesting claims in this complaint. Claims we can use against her. How? She's admitted in writing that her children used your pool regularly for 3 years. That's trespassing. She's claimed implied easement rights, which means she's admitting she believed she had legal ownership interest in your property without compensation. That's theft of services. She's demanded restoration of the pool, which implies she believes she has property rights to your backyard. Patricia pulled out a thick folder. But here's the beautiful part. She's also filing under her homeowner's insurance, claiming this is a property dispute. Insurance fraud, if we can prove she knew she had no legitimate claim. Sarah felt a spark of hope. Countersue. Countersue, file criminal complaints, demand sanctions for frivolous litigation, and Patricia's grin widened. Since she's claimed the pool was community property that children depended on, we can demand financial records showing whether she charged neighborhood kids for access. If she profited from your property without your consent, that's a whole other category of legal problems. She did charge them, Sarah said quietly. $5 per child. I have it on video. Patricia's pen stopped moving. She what? Last month, she set up a little table by the pool gate and charged neighborhood kids $5 each for pool access. I have security footage of the whole thing. Sarah, you just turned this from a nuisance lawsuit into a criminal matter. She was operating an unlicensed business on your property, collecting money for access to facilities she didn't own, potentially violating child safety regulations. Patricia was scribbling notes frantically. We are going to destroy her. 2 weeks later, Karen Peterson received an unexpected phone call at 7 in the morning. Mrs. Peterson? This is Detective Maria Santos with the Phoenix Police Department. I need to speak with you about some allegations regarding illegal business operations and trespassing. Would you prefer to come to the station, or should I come to you? Karen's coffee mug slipped from her numb fingers, shattering on her kitchen tile. What? What allegations? We have evidence that you may have been operating an unlicensed recreational facility, collecting money for access to property you don't own, and potentially endangering children by providing unsupervised access to a private swimming pool. I really think it would be better if we discussed this in person. Karen's hand shook as she dialed Thomas Brennan's office. Tom, something's wrong. The police want to talk to me about business operations and child endangerment. What's happening? Brennan's voice was tight. Karen, I need you to listen carefully. Don't say anything to the police without me present. Don't answer any questions. Don't sign anything. Don't even confirm your name. Meet me at my office in 1 hour. But why would they? Because your neighbor just filed a countersuit that makes our complaint look like a parking ticket. Brennan's tone had lost all of its earlier confidence. Theft of services, criminal trespass, operating an unlicensed business, child endangerment, insurance fraud, and about 6 other charges I've never seen bundled together in a single complaint. Karen felt the room spinning around her. That's impossible. The children needed somewhere to swim. Karen, did you or did you not charge money for pool access? The silence stretched for long seconds. It was just to cover costs. Pool chemicals, cleaning. Jesus Christ. Brennan's voice came through the phone like a death sentence. Karen, you need to understand something. You just admitted to me that you operated a commercial enterprise on someone else's property without their consent, without licenses, without insurance, and without safety oversight. That's not a civil matter anymore. That's criminal. But the lawsuit is the least of your problems. If the state decides to prosecute, you could be looking at jail time. Karen's legs gave out, and she collapsed into her kitchen chair. Through her window, she could see Sarah Martinez's backyard, where new sod was being installed over the space that had once been a swimming pool. The landscaping was beautiful. Desert plants, decorative rocks, a small meditation garden where the deep end used to be. It looked like the pool had never existed at all. Tom, what do I do? First, you're going to pay my emergency retainer. Another $100,000. Then we are going to try to minimize the damage. But Karen. Brennan's voice was grim. You picked a fight with someone who was better prepared than you realized. This Sarah Martinez isn't just some lonely woman with a pool. She's an architect, she knows property law, she documented everything, and she's got a lawyer who's about to make an example out of you. Karen hung up the phone and stared at her reflection in the black screen. For 3 years, She'd seen Sarah Martinez as an obstacle to be overcome, a selfish woman who needed to be taught the value of community sharing. Now she realized she'd been looking at her reflection the entire time. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mrs. Peterson, this is Patricia Rowan, representing Sarah Martinez. We need to discuss immediate cessation of all trespass activity and... The Maricopa County Courthouse buzzed with the energy of a building where people's lives changed forever on a daily basis. Sarah Martinez walked through the metal detectors with the calm confidence of someone who had spent weeks preparing for this moment, while across the lobby, Karen Peterson huddled with Thomas Brennan, her face pale and drawn. 3 months had passed since the pool destruction, and those months had not been kind to Karen Peterson. The criminal investigation had expanded beyond anyone's expectations. Detective Santos had discovered that Karen's unauthorized pool operation was just the tip of an iceberg of entitled behavior that had gone unchecked for years. Neighbors came forward with stories of Karen using their utilities, harvesting vegetables from their gardens, and even hosting paid events in the community park without permits. Your Honor, Patricia Rowan addressed Judge Catherine Morrison. With the measured tone of a lawyer who held all the cards, what we have here is not a simple neighbor dispute, but a pattern of criminal behavior disguised as community activism. Judge Morrison, a stern woman in her 60s with zero tolerance for frivolous litigation, reviewed the thick stack of evidence Patricia had submitted. Security footage, financial records, witness statements, and most damaging of all, Karen's own social media posts bragging about her community pool management and the money she was making from it. Mrs. Peterson, the judge said, I've reviewed the original complaint you filed against Ms. Martinez. You claimed she destroyed community property that children depended on. Is that correct? Karen stood on shaking legs. Yes, Your Honor, but... And you also claimed that you had implied easement rights to use this pool. Correct? Well, yes, but, Mrs. Peterson, did you or did you not charge neighborhood children money to access Ms. Martinez's pool? Thomas Brennan shot to his feet. Your Honor, my client invokes her Fifth Amendment rights. Sit down, Mr. Brennan. This is a civil proceeding, not a criminal trial. Yet. Judge Morrison's gaze could have frozen water. Mrs. Peterson, answer the question. Karen's voice came out as barely a whisper. I collected small donations to help with maintenance costs. Maintenance costs for property you don't own. Property you accessed without permission. Property you used to generate income without the owner's consent. The judge's voice rose with each phrase. Mrs. Peterson, you've essentially sued someone for stopping you from stealing from them. The courtroom was dead silent except for the scratch of court reporters' pens and the quiet sobbing of Karen's twin boys, who sat in the gallery with their father. Mark Peterson had filed for separation 2 weeks earlier, citing Karen's complete break from reality as irreconcilable differences. Patricia Rowan stood up. Your Honor, we are requesting dismissal of Mrs. Peterson's complaint with prejudice, full legal fees, and immediate consideration of our counterclaims. Counterclaims granted, Judge Morrison said without hesitation. Mrs. Peterson, you are hereby ordered to pay Ms. Martinez's legal fees in the amount of... She consulted. Her notes, $47,000. Additionally, you will pay restitution for 3 years of unauthorized pool usage calculated at commercial pool rates, totaling $18,000. Karen gasped. Your Honor, I can't afford. Furthermore, the judge continued, you are permanently enjoined from entering Ms. Martinez's property for any reason. Violation of this injunction will result in immediate arrest and contempt charges. Thomas Brennan looked like a man watching his career implode in real time. Your Honor, if I may request a payment plan. Mr. Brennan, I'm not finished. Judge. Morrison's tone could have cut glass. I'm also referring this matter to the State Bar for investigation into whether filing this lawsuit constituted frivolous litigation. Mrs. Peterson's claims were not just without merit, they were actively contradicted by evidence she herself provided. Sarah felt a surge of vindication, but it was nothing compared to what came next. Additionally, I'm ordering that all evidence in this case be forwarded to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office for potential criminal prosecution. Mrs. Peterson, you may face charges including theft of services, operating an unlicensed business, child endangerment, and fraud. Karen collapsed back into her chair like a puppet with cut strings. But Judge Morrison wasn't done. Ms. Martinez, I understand you've had to endure significant harassment during this process. I'm also granting your request for a stalking injunction. Mrs. Peterson is prohibited from contacting you directly or indirectly, from posting about you on social media, and from discussing this case with your neighbors or anyone else in your community." Sarah nodded gratefully. The stalking injunction was Patricia's idea. Karen had spent the last 3 months waging a social media campaign against Sarah, calling her everything from community destroyer to child hater. She'd organized neighborhood meetings, started online petitions, and even contacted Sarah's employer trying to get her fired. As the gavel fell, Karen Peterson's carefully constructed world crumbled around her. Outside the courthouse, Patricia pulled Sarah aside. "There's something else you should know. Thomas Brennan's firm is dropping Karen as a client." "Why?" "Because she lied to them. Extensively. She told them she had community support, that other neighbors would testify on her behalf, that she had documentation of your harassment." Patricia grinned. What she actually had was a folder full of screenshots of her own illegal activity and a collection of witnesses who were happy to testify against her. Sarah shook her head in amazement. How did she think this would end? People like Karen Peterson don't think past their own immediate gratification. She wanted to hurt you, so she sued you. She never considered that you might fight back effectively. They were interrupted by a commotion near the courthouse steps. Karen Peterson was screaming at a cluster of reporters who had somehow gotten wind of the story. "This is all lies. She destroyed community property. She's a selfish, vindictive woman who hates children. Someone needs to investigate her, not me." The reporters exchanged glances, and Sarah could see them recognizing the story for what it really was. Not the tale of community activism Karen was trying to sell, but the spectacular downfall of an entitled neighbor who had finally pushed too far. "Mrs. Peterson," one reporter called out, "is it true you were charging children money to use someone else's swimming pool?" "That's not. I was just, the community needed." Karen's words tumbled over each other in incoherent rage. "Mrs. Peterson, how do you respond to allegations that you operated an unlicensed business on private property?" "I didn't operate anything. I was helping the community. She's the one who should be investigated." Sarah watched with a mixture of pity and satisfaction as Karen dug herself deeper with every word. Behind Karen, Thomas Brennan was frantically trying to pull his former client away from the cameras, but Karen shrugged him off. "I'm going to appeal this. I'm going to fight this all the way to the Supreme Court if I have to. Someone needs to stop people like her from destroying community resources." One of the reporters leaned forward. "Mrs. Peterson, are you saying you believe you had ownership rights to your neighbor's swimming pool?" "I'm saying that when children depend on something, when a community comes together around a shared resource, you can't just destroy it out of spite. There should be laws protecting community assets from vindictive property owners." Sarah felt Patricia's hand on her arm. "We should go," her lawyer whispered. "She's creating more evidence for the criminal prosecution with every word." But Sarah couldn't look away. For 3 years, she had wondered what drove Karen Peterson's behavior. Now, watching her former neighbor rant at reporters about community ownership and children's rights while completely ignoring the fact that she had been stealing services and endangering kids, Sarah finally understood. Karen Peterson genuinely believed she was the victim in this story. Even now, even after being exposed as a thief and a liar in open court, Karen was convinced that Sarah was the villain and she was the wronged party fighting for justice. It was almost impressive in its complete disconnection from reality. As they walked to Patricia's car, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from her contractor. "Meditation garden is finished. The koi pond is beautiful. You'll love it." Sarah smiled, thinking about the peaceful water feature that now occupied the space where her swimming pool used to be. No chlorine, no maintenance, no uninvited guests. Just the gentle sound of flowing water and the sight of colorful fish swimming in circles. "What's next?" she asked Patricia. "Well, the criminal case is out of our hands now, but I suspect you'll be getting a very different kind of call from Karen Peterson soon." "What do you mean?" Patricia grinned. "Reality is about to hit her like a freight train. Her husband's leaving her. She owes you $65,000 she doesn't have. She's facing potential jail time, and her lawyer just fired her. Plus, I happen to know that the HOA is considering a special assessment to cover the legal fees for dealing with her violations. Sarah raised an eyebrow. How do you know about the HOA? Because, Patricia said with satisfaction, they hired me to represent them too. Turns out Karen violated about 15 different community guidelines, and the HOA wants to recover their costs. As they drove away from the courthouse, Sarah caught a glimpse of Karen in her rearview mirror. Sarah stared through the chain-secured gap at her former neighbor, taking in the dramatic transformation. Karen Peterson, who had once strutted around the neighborhood like she owned it, now stood hunched on Sarah's doorstep, her hands trembling and her eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion. You have 30 seconds, Sarah said quietly. Then I'm calling the police. I know I'm not supposed to be here, Karen whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. But I didn't know where else to go. Mark took the boys to his mother's house. My lawyer fired me. The bank is threatening foreclosure. I'm going to lose everything, Sarah. Everything. Sarah felt a flicker of something that might have been sympathy, but 3 years of harassment had built thick walls around her. Compassion. That's not my problem, Karen. But it is. Karen's voice cracked with desperation. Don't you see? This whole thing started because I was trying to build community. I wanted the neighborhood children to have somewhere safe to play. I wanted to bring people together. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. You charged money, Karen. You made a profit off my property without my permission. It was just to cover costs. Pool chemicals are expensive, and I was doing all the cleaning and maintenance. I thought you'd appreciate someone taking care of it since you never used it. Sarah studied Karen's face, searching for any sign of genuine understanding. Do you hear yourself? You're still justifying it. You're still acting like you did me a favor by stealing from me. I wasn't stealing. Karen's desperation flared into familiar anger. I was trying to help. This neighborhood used to have community spirit before you moved here with your walls and your cameras and you're selfish. Stop. Sarah's voice cut through Karen's tirade like a blade. Just stop. This is exactly why you're in this mess. You can't admit that you did anything wrong. Karen's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, and Sarah saw the exact moment when the reality of her situation finally penetrated her self-righteousness. I'm going to jail, aren't I? Karen whispered. Sarah had been wondering the same thing. Patricia had called yesterday with an update from the prosecutor's office. The criminal investigation had uncovered a pattern of behavior that went far beyond the pool incident. Karen had been operating several small-scale schemes throughout the neighborhood, charging for access to community spaces she didn't control, selling produce from other people's gardens, even organizing paid tours of neighbors' homes while they were at work. Probably, Sarah said honestly. Karen's legs gave out, and she sank onto Sarah's front step, burying her face in her hands. My boys are going to grow up knowing their mother is a criminal. Mark will get full custody. I'll lose the house, the car, everything we've built. For a moment, Sarah felt the pull of old instincts, the desire to comfort someone in distress, to offer solutions, to be the helpful neighbor she'd always tried to be. But then she remembered the security footage of Karen teaching her children to move the fence boards, remembered the threats and the lawsuit and the months of harassment. You should have thought about that before you sued me for stopping you from stealing from me. Karen looked up with tear-streaked cheeks. I know you hate me. I know you think I'm a terrible person. But please, Sarah, isn't there some way we can work this out? Some way to make this go away? Make what go away? The criminal charges? The civil judgment? The fact that you spent 3 years treating my property like your personal business? All of it. Karen's voice rose desperately. I'll pay you back every penny. I'll apologize publicly. I'll do community service. I'll move away. I'll sell the house and take the boys somewhere else so you never have to see us again. Sarah felt a strange mix of emotions, pity, anger, and something that might have been satisfaction. For 3 years, Karen Peterson had made her life miserable, with the casual cruelty of someone who had never faced real consequences. Now, faced with the collapse of everything she'd taken for granted, Karen was offering to disappear entirely. It's too late for that, Sarah said. The criminal case is out of my hands. The prosecutor doesn't care what I want anymore. But You could talk to them. You could tell them I've learned my lesson, that I'll never do anything like this again. They'd listen to you. Sarah shook her head. Karen, do you know what the prosecutor told my lawyer yesterday? They found evidence that you've been running similar schemes in 3 different neighborhoods over the past 5 years. This wasn't about community spirit or helping children. This was a pattern of theft and fraud that you've been refining for years. Karen's face went white. That's not. Those were different situations. Those were misunderstandings. Really? Like the time you charged parents for access to the Riverside Elementary playground during summer break? Or when you sold tickets to the Desert Botanical Garden using someone else's membership? Or the paid home tours you organized using houses where the owners were on vacation? Each accusation hit Karen like a physical blow. How do you know about those? Because the prosecutor's office is thorough. They've been talking to people, Karen. Lots of people. And every conversation reveals another scheme, another situation where you convinced yourself that you were just building community while you picked their pockets. Karen stared at Sarah with the expression of someone watching their entire self-image crumble in real time. I was just trying to help. No, you weren't. Sarah's voice was surprisingly gentle. You were trying to control things. You wanted to be the person everyone depended on, the one who organized everything and made the rules. And when people didn't appreciate your help the way you thought they should, you found ways to make them pay for it. Literally. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of early morning traffic and Karen's quiet sobbing. What happens now? Karen finally asked. Now you face the consequences of your choices. You get a public defender if you can't afford a lawyer. You go to court. You probably go to jail for a while. Your boys learn that actions have consequences, which might be the most valuable lesson they ever get. Karen looked up sharply. You really hate me that much? You want to see my children suffer? This has nothing to do with your children, Karen. This is about you finally being held accountable for years of entitled behavior. Those boys deserve better than a mother who teaches them that other people's property is theirs to use, and other people's boundaries are theirs to ignore. So that's it? You're just going to watch me destroy my family over a swimming pool? Sarah felt her patience finally snap. I didn't destroy your family, Karen. You did. When you decided that your wants mattered more than my property rights. When you sued me for stopping you from stealing from me. When you spent 3 months harassing me on social media and trying to get me fired from my job. You destroyed your own family by being so convinced you were right that you couldn't see how wrong you were. Karen stood up slowly, swaying slightly, as if the weight of her situation was too much to bear. I thought we were friends. I thought you'd eventually understand that I was trying to help. We were never friends, Karen. Friends don't take without asking. Friends don't ignore boundaries. Friends don't threaten lawsuits when they're told no. Karen nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. I guess I never really understood what friendship was. For the first time in their entire relationship, Sarah heard something in Karen's voice that sounded like genuine self-reflection. It's not too late to learn, Sarah said quietly. But it starts with taking responsibility for what you've done. Real responsibility, not the kind where you explain why your intentions were good. Karen wiped her eyes and looked at Sarah's house, at the beautiful desert landscaping where the pool used to be, at the security cameras that had captured her crimes, at the property lines she had violated so casually for so long. I should go, Karen said, before someone sees me here and calls the police. Yes, you should. Karen turned to leave, then paused. Sarah, for what it's worth, I really am sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Not sorry about the consequences. Sorry that I hurt you. Sorry that I taught my boys it was okay to take things that didn't belong to us. Sorry that I was so focused on being right that I forgot how to be good. Sarah watched her former neighbor walk away, noting the slumped shoulders and hesitant steps of someone who had finally run out of fight. For the first time in 3 years, Karen Peterson looked genuinely defeated. But as Karen reached the sidewalk, she stopped and turned back. The boys ask about you sometimes, she called out. They want to know why you hate them. What should I tell them? Sarah felt her heart clench. Tell them that I never hated them. Tell them their mother made some bad choices, But that doesn't make them bad kids. Tell them. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Tell them that sometimes the people who love us make mistakes, and the best thing we can do is learn from those mistakes and try to be better. Karen nodded, her face crumpling with fresh tears. Thank you. As Karen disappeared around the corner, Sarah closed her door and leaned against it, feeling emotionally drained. Her phone immediately buzzed with a text from Patricia. Neighbor watch app shows Karen at your house. Everything okay? Should I call police? Sarah typed back, all fine. I think she finally gets it. But even as she sent the message,